Good morning from Eastern Virginia Medical School. Please stand by. This meeting will start momentarily.
done, then Sarah, you may begin. So just hold on for a moment.
We have
Just hold
everyone
on
but
for a
Paul
moment.
Frame. Okay.
I have to have two computers, one with the meeting and one with my pads.
It's board room 2. Board.
I could remember that.
Well, you probably don't use it all the time?
No, I don't.
I do. For 3 of us.
Stream is confirmed.
Okay.
Okay. The stream has been confirmed. Sarah, if you would like to begin, you may.
All right. I'm going to call the meeting to order for the Governance Committee for June 9th. Thank you for attending. I think we have everyone in attendance but Paul Frame. We are meeting by electronic means today as permitted by Virginia law during the state of emergency declared by the governor due to COVID-19. This meeting will be held entirely in open session and is being live streamed and recorded. All votes taken today will be done by roll call, so it will require a little bit of patience, the change of our behavior. So, good morning. And I think we've got Charlottesville and Newport News and Norfolk, and I'm up in Westport, Connecticut. So I've got Virginia Beach. So we've got everyone covered, the Eastern Seaboard covered. We want to approve the minutes of March 10th and May 22nd. Are there any comments, suggestions, corrections to the minutes of March 10th? Anything for May 22nd? Hearing nothing, we will take a roll call vote to confirm approval of minutes. And Tracy, you want to do that?
Yes,
Hold on.
ma'am.
Take a motion and a second, please.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve? Second?
Motion.
Thank you. Okay,
Second.
thank you. Thank you.
Are we good?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Ms. Bishop?
Yes,
Okay, Dr. Emery?
Yes.
Dr. Martin?
Yes.
Rear Admiral Bianchi?
Yes.
And Mr. Warden?
Yes.
Okay.
wonderful. Now we're going to go to board officer nominations, and in accordance with our bylaws, the governance committee is responsible for accepting nominations and presenting a slate of officers to the board for a vote. As you will remember, for 2 meetings we announced interest in hearing from the board regarding their own personal interest or their recommendations for positions of leadership, because this governance committee has become very proactive in terms of succession leadership planning. And we then sent an email out, 2 emails out to everybody, polling them for their own self-interest or recommendations of others. Thankfully, we heard from a number of them with some great recommendations, and we have, based on all of our board's input and the committee's input, I think a very, very exciting slate of officers. And I think it's done, as I was talking with Dr. Martin this morning, with the intent to set up the Board of Visitors to really think through leadership succession so that people are put onto committee chairs with the thought of giving them a chance to see, us a chance and them a chance to see, is this leadership something that could be moved up the ranks? So we were very purposeful, and I think it's a very exciting slate with Dr. Teresa Emery as rector, Dr. Marcus Martin as vice rector, Sarah Bishop as secretary, Admiral Robert Bianchi as treasurer, and assistant secretary Tracy Morton. So that is our slates: Dr. Emery, Dr. Martin, Sarah Bishop, and Admiral Bianchi. So is there any discussion? Can I have a motion to approve the slate of officers as presented?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All right, then let's get a roll call vote, Tracy.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Bishop,
Yes?
Dr. Emery,
Yes.
Dr. Martin,
Yes.
Rear Admiral Bianchi,
Yes.
Mr. Warden.
Yes.
Wonderful. Now, this slate will be presented for approval at the board meeting today, and I think we have done the work that we are set out to do for board leadership. I'm very excited, and I appreciate Mark calling, and I hope there was no twisting of arms, but if that's what it took, we got what we needed, and I'm excited to present this slate. And so that I think Dr. Martin's the only one who's not familiar with the other work we've done. It is the responsibility of the rector to select their own committee leadership. But Dr. Emery said, let's use this time, let's look at what people said, and let's see if we can get stuff at least on paper set up, not for vote today. So for your information, Dr. Martin, we have also behind the scenes done the work to help set up it for September when the rector selects the committee chairs. And so that work has also been done. So there is no leadership vacuum, which is exciting.
And Ms. Bishop, sir, I'm certainly honored and excited to be nominated to be the vice rector. I look forward to working with all of the officers, and Teresa, I really look forward to working with you. Living a little closer to Norfolk these days, right now at our home in the Outer Banks, and so hopefully communications will be more frequent, so I can get up to snuff in terms of the leadership job. And for the whole group, I want to apologize. As you know from the minutes of the past two meetings, I was absent. I honestly did not know I was a member of the governance committee. I apologize for that.
When we
That oversight
transferred over, yeah.
forward.
Well, let me own
Thank
that
you.
one, because as committee chair, I should have made sure everyone knew that they were on the committee. So Dr. Martin, I own that. And so you see what happens when you don't
Thank
show
you.
up, you get volunteered for things. So
That's right.
so maybe it was done on purpose.
Thank
So I'm very excited.
Yep.
I'm excited
Okay.
about
Oh,
this.
good with.
Okay, so another job we have is we conduct an annual performance review of the board, their own self-assessment and the assessment of how the board works. And it's very important that we go through this every year. You'll remember the electronic survey we did last year. It was, I believe, 31, 35, 34 questions. And it allowed people to put on a scale their own assessment along 5 different themes. I want to review that. You have that in your package, because with the year we have had, we're a year out from the Governor Northam issue. We are in COVID. I think it's important for us to have another look at those self-assessment questions and make sure that they are as relevant right now as they were last year. So I do welcome any suggestions on survey questions. Thankfully, we've got a talented staff with Stacy and her team that then takes those suggestions and makes them into meaningful questions. We had 5 subcategories last year: board responsibilities, strategic direction of the board, our structure of the Board of Visitors, our meetings and the flow of information prior to and during, and then your own personal performance as board members. So I don't know if you guys, as board leaders, have questions that you think should be added to this, a category, anything that would be, keep it relevant and have us as board leaders able to assess what do we need to do this coming year with board education, board training. Are we where we need to be? Have we heard from our members? So anyone's thoughts and suggestions?
Oh,
I know, and this is a suggestion that Marcus had made a while ago, and that was the idea of a retreat where board members actually spend more meaningful time, contiguous time together to talk about the issues and maybe come up with some action plans and some solutions. So I don't want to take any. I want to give Marcus the credit for that idea, but I like that idea and want to make sure it's on the radar.
And I think
Thank you.
we
Thank you,
all
Mark.
think that's a great.
Yeah. Go ahead, Terry.
So one of the things that seems to be an obstacle, and I think we need to find a way to deal with it, is this idea that if we meet together, it has to be a public meeting. And on the other hand, I think that it's important to have a retreat. So I would ask Dr. Martin, who has served on the Board of Visitors of the University of Virginia, to kind of enlighten us a little bit here so we might be able to think about this in a way that would be effective.
Right. But thank you, Terry. So I mentioned to Mark that it had been my experience as a vice president at UVA and also staff person for diversity, equity, and inclusion for the Board of Visitors, that they held retreats every year. Now, not all of the administrative staff were invited to these summer retreats, but the purpose of the retreats was to give the board members time together to focus on strategic planning, to focus on certain goals and objectives for the year. And in terms of how they held those meetings, if I recall, there were 2 days, 1 or 2 days, and there were, agenda items of importance that were led by officers and other members of the Board of Visitors. And as far as, I think personnel issues and anything like that probably were all done with closed sessions, just like you would hold a regular board meeting. Anytime there's more than 2 board members meeting, as we all know, it's got to be declared as a public session. But what I found driving from Charlottesville to Norfolk is a relatively easy drive, 3 hours or so.
Mm-hmm.
But then we spend, 4 to 5 hours together, and then we leave. And then towards the end of the day, there's usually closed session discussions about very important issues, particularly financial issues, that we have not had enough time together to ferret out or to put some further suggestions on the table. So I think that alone, the financial issues, the future of the institution, how do we get more funding, very important items for us to discuss as a team. And we can do that as a retreat. And, the president and provost of the university, of the institution, and others can be invited to the retreats. It doesn't mean that we close it to other administrators at EVMS or even faculty members. I think we want to invite those individuals we want to hear from during a retreat. And it's a matter of us planning it and saying, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Sarah.
I spoke with Paul Frame for quite a bit of time, and it's something that I think could also take place at a retreat. Paul Frame said that he was on the VMI board, and he chaired that board. He said that board is selected based on their ability to have influence in Richmond and influence in the communities that they need to be influential in. And he said there isn't a week that goes by with a legislative plan that a member of the VMI board doesn't have a charge to call or visit or email some of the General Assembly the whole year, not during the when the legislature's in session. They're too busy for you then, and everyone's inundating. But throughout the year, there is a very clear plan that takes place all 52 weeks on how to move the money from Richmond into VMI. And I think that during Teresa's leadership and Marx's leadership, that legislative thing is something that we could probably hash out at a retreat. Is that correct? I share Dr. Martin's thoughts that we have wonderful discussions. The lids get opened on Centera or the healthcare partnerships around the state or our finances, and then the meeting is over, and you'll see a lot of us want to stay and talk and problem solve. And so a retreat would give us that time. I know it is very taxing on staff, but I think the wins are significant. Anyone else? Your thoughts?
So
Just
a
mention
question
that we're
about that.
Dr.
A
Emery?
question. Yes. So a question about that, and maybe Dr. Frame and Dr. Martin could, Mr. Frame and Dr. Martin could kind of clarify. How do you navigate the open meeting issue with regard to discussing these things and hashing them out, whether it be a retreat or not? What is the mechanism? Because as you know, when we're dealing with the issue with the governor and the EVMS and all that, we had Washington Post reporters there, and of course, we're probably not so exciting right now, but how do we navigate that need to have these discussions, which many of them should be closed because they are dealing with personnel and financial issues for the institution, with the need to have open public meetings? So, I mean, do you open and then you say, okay, we're going to close now, we're going to talk about these things for 4 or 5 hours and then open again, and in which case I can understand it. But I just think that, I know this is just the beginning of a conversation, but this obstacle seems to be one reason why the EVMS BOV has not been able to really engage in a meaningful way beyond the meeting time.
I'm happy to look into that and report back on that, because there are definite mechanisms under FOIA where this is permitted and boards do meet, this way to have retreats, strategic planning. So I'm happy to take a look at that and report back to this committee. And also for us to consider good timing, maybe something to talk about today. Is this something you'd like to see in August before the first board meeting, kind of timing of this retreat, when you think it would be better? Because it's certainly something we here at EVMS will look into facilitating.
Wonderful.
Right. And Teresa, I acknowledge your comments about that. And Stacy, thank you very much for taking this on to look into. And I think for the most part, and I can't speak entirely about all the facts, that these meetings are handled very similarly to the way we handle the meetings in the boardroom at EVMS. When we have to have a closed session, we go into a closed session. But, Stacy certainly can get us more information about it.
Dr. Emery, really all of you guys, when we look at this survey, is there any intel you want from the other board members? Could we use the survey to ask, are you interested in and willing to participate in a 1 or 2 day retreat? And are you interested and or willing to participate in legislative initiatives? Or should we be more engaged? Should we develop questions that ferret out that information?
My opinion, the answer is yes. I also think that in seeking BOV members, that will be also a very important question to put forward to someone, because as we look for new members, again, we've not been doing that, and that hasn't been something. We are making it a requirement that people actually come to the meetings or be engaged with the meetings, which I don't think was applied previously. I think that would be an important thing to consider, asking someone who's interested in being on the BOV.
Yes. Okay. Well, then I'm going to work with Stacy and Tracy to craft 1 or 2 questions that give us some information regarding interest in retreat, need for an interest in legislative engagement year round, and we'll see those added to our survey, and that may or may not provide us what we need to do some planning, but good. Any other topics like the retreat that you'd like to have us discuss in governance session and or the survey? Dr. Martin?
Sarah, I'll also reach out to the UVA BOV staff to see if they can provide me guidelines related to the retreat. They may have something written that they would not mind sharing with us.
Oh, sure.
And I'm sure Stacy will find out the information.
That'd be great. It's always good not to reinvent a wheel.
Sure.
Fantastic. Anything else, Stacy or Tracy, to come before this committee?
Nothing
Well,
else
then-
is on the agenda.
Nothing else on the agenda? Anything else anyone wants to add? Mark, Rob?
Yeah, well, I just real quick, I didn't know if Marcus and Admiral Bianchi were aware of who the new chairs are going to be starting in September. I thought they might have an interest in that.
Good point.
And
Yeah.
so,
Marcus, go ahead, Mark.
Bruce Walpoltz is going to be assuming the chairmanship of the Student Affairs Committee. So Marcus, Bruce is coming in behind you.
Okay.
And then Alan Wagner will be assuming the chairmanship of the Audit and Compliance Committee.
Compliant.
So Sarah is going to step out of being the chairperson on that committee. She's staying as chairperson of the Governance Committee, and Alan Wagner will step in. And so part of the discussion, and Marcus, this is for your benefit because you accidentally missed the meeting. Part of that discussion was trying to create openings for people to serve in a leadership role that then, could get them more engaged, but also potentially get them to at least, kind of get a feel for if they wanted to get even more engaged potentially at the officer level.
Great. And we have the Academic and Student Affairs Committee meeting coming up next. I will refrain from saying any of this information until the board approves everything.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that will come for approval in September. That the board votes on in September. So this is the pre-planning, for that transition.
Well,
Correct.
Okay.
well, I thought that the chairs are just appointed by the rector as opposed to a vote on that part of it. Is that my understanding?
They are appointed by the rector we confirm it at the board level during the first.
Now, with regard to that, then at the first board meeting, would that mean that the previous chair would still be the chair, or can that person go as acting? Because that is sort of the idea would be that you make that transition somewhere.
No, we do make that transition on that day because it is a confirmation. It's your appointment, but you bring it up to the board level.
So
And
on
from
the first, from September.
Correct.
Okay.
Alan Wagner said the same thing that you did, Dr. Martin, his joy to be considered a leader on this board and to move into a leadership position. And he was deeply grateful for the phone call from Mark and from the trust we placed in him, so he took it very seriously.
And just so Dr. Martin knows, that also when we made these considerations, we also looked at people's time still on the board, until they actually would have to roll off, and where they were along the path, realizing that once you have an officer role, you get additional time. The pre-planning also is coordinated with time allowed on the board.
Got it. That makes
Tracy
sense.
is really good about keeping us up to date with timelines, and so we will get out a new list of people in their new roles and their terms left on the board. So if you could do that, Tracy, that would be deeply appreciated.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, any other business to come? Admiral, go ahead.
Yeah, so I do have one question then, because Alan was part of the finance committee, and actually Julie was as well, and I think she's leaving. Who reshuffles the folks among the various committees and so on? When does that happen?
That happens over the summer, and Dr. Emery will look at that because we'll have several new board members, and that's why we wait until we get our new board members July 1 to place everybody on those committees. So yes, there will need to be a shuffling that happens and to assess that.
Got it. Thanks.
So what I'd like Dr. Martin as chair of the Academic and Student Affairs, me as chair of Audit Compliance, and Rob as chair of Finance. Did I say that right? Yeah, Audit and Compliance. we should be looking at, I encourage us to look at who is around the table on our committees and who's in the right spot and who really hasn't sort of gotten their teeth into it. And it may be time, I'm happy to do any, as chair of governance, taking you off the hot seat, I'm happy to call. If I was not engaged in I'd be going to make sure the finance committee are to be better suited for, or to encourage, or to say, we really want to get you on the academic student affairs because we think that it's an area of interest that you could develop there. So if we all would look at our committees and look at it for who needs to really probably be shuffled on to someplace else, or in true leadership planning, after our current, just look at who we have there and start thinking, well, who should follow Bruce and Alan? So as we look to groom our next level of leadership.
Well said.
Got it.
Okay. I look forward to the reshuffling when it takes place, but it's going to take us really having the hard look at where people are thriving and serving us well and where they aren't, and finding a place where they will thrive. So that we benefit from their skill sets. Okay, guys, anything else come before the governance committee?
No, but when we're done, I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
When we're finished, I have a question just about the
go
meeting
ahead.
structure today. So at 10, usually the academic and student affairs is usually at 11. It's at 10. At 11,
Yes.
I don't see anything on my schedule that I can zoom into. And as potentially the incoming rector, I'd like to, if there is a meeting going on at 11, be able to access that. So again, I only had Zoom connections to this meeting, to academic affairs, and then the 1 o'clock meeting. So I would like to be able to access something if there is something at 11.
Yes, I can
Casey?
send that to you, Dr. Emery.
Okay.
I can email you the link.
And maybe just really, since we're so disconnected, we're not there, just knowing what are the meetings out there and what is their schedule for today.
Yeah,
Just
11,
because-
11 is audit and noontime is fine.
Okay, so there's a meeting every hour. Okay.
Every hour on the hour.
We split it
No
up for
lunch for you.
connectivity issues.
No lunch, no box lunches. I keep hoping DoorDash is going to show up at my door.
Oh, funny.
No, so Tracy, you'll get those all out to Dr. Emery and Dr. Martin so they can clue it, log it if they
Yes.
want. All
Yes,
right, thank
absolutely.
you very much. Is there a motion? Anything else, Stacy?
Nothing else.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting of the governance committee?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Okay, well, the meeting is adjourned,
Hey, Marcus.
everybody.
Hey,
Yes.
Marcus.
You can cut the
If
feed.
you're at your place at the Outer Banks, I'm in Ocean Sands right now, so I'm not too far from you.
Oh, yes. Right down. All right. The weather is awesome.
That's been great.